Welcome to Future Consideration, SB Nation's weekly NFL draft show. That is Matt Ufford. He's our NFL guy.
You heard, and that's Dan Rubenstein. He watches college football.
That's true. Let's get into it. We're going to start with this week's Mocking the Draft mock draft.
This is a fun one.
Spicy.
Yeah, again, this is not necessarily predictive of what will happen, but in this week we wonder what happens if quarterbacks take a tumble. And so looking at the top five like we always do, Jadeveon Clowney to the Texans. Best player going first overall makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and in the same defensive front as J.J. Watt. Havoc.
Scary.
So much. Number two.
St. Louis Rams taking Greg Robinson.
Yeah.
And again, no qualms there. That's a franchise left tackle who's going to be there hopefully for the next 10 years.
Yeah, offensive line needs in St. Louis. That's been a guy that's been there for a little while. Jacksonville at three.
Sammy Watkins. Certainly wide receiver is a need for the Jaguars.
Yes, especially with Justin Blackmon's future uncertainty. This is future consideration.
Yes.
Justin Blackmon's future, we can't consider
so,
really.
And again, the most talented wide receiver, a game-changing wide receiver who's drawn comparisons to A.J. Green.
Yeah.
You know, like that's guy.
The big thing with him, if he's going to go top five, is the versatility. He can reverse his return game. There's so much he can do to contribute,
so it kind of
makes sense. Four.
This is an intriguing one. The Vikings would trade up to take Khalil Mack. And he's been climbing up boards. I saw Fox Sports' Peter Schrager said that Khalil Mack might be a top 3 pick.
Yep.
And we're gonna get into
he's super duper NFL ready. Yeah, we're gonna get into the outside linebackers in a little bit. But yeah, that's to trade up, and that's a huge need for Minnesota though. That outside linebacker.
And 5, another shocker. Oakland Raiders selecting Aaron Donald from Pittsburgh.
I never understood why he wasn't maybe not this high, but a top 10, top 12 pick to start with when we started talking about
6
prospects.
weeks ago, he was end of the first round, then he was middle of the first round, and now we're talking top 5. That's
an interior defensive lineman who has no clear weakness and just dominates backfields.
Why not?
That's a top 5 ready guy. I'm a little bit surprised at this high, but you know what? I like it.
And then let's bounce around a little bit. At number 8, trading down.
Yeah, let's get into some quarterbacks finally.
Are the Cleveland Browns taking Bortles as the first QB off the board?
Yeah, I don't think he is the best and most NFL-ready quarterback here, but at 8, no matter who grabs me, if it's Cleveland trading up, if it's anybody else, it's still a great value to me.
Browns need a franchise quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
Better than a lot of than Cleveland has put on the field.
Yes.
So Tennessee at 11, Rashid Hageman, thoughts?
Thoughts, it's certainly a need for them. They need to improve the defensive line. Rashid Hageman's one of the better defensive linemen in the draft. I don't have any specific quibbles with it.
Right.
It's one where I just go,
If you are not a playoff team, which Tennessee is not at the moment, fortify the offensive line, the defensive front, and then work out from there once you get to the playoffs or near the playoffs.
13, and here's where I start loving this hypothetical draft, is the Rams taking Xavier Su'a-Filo, the guard from UCLA, and suddenly with 2 picks in the top 13, you've got Greg Robinson and Su'a-Filo, and then pair that with running back Zach Stacy, and the Rams are suddenly very scary.
I like that a lot, especially we saw San Francisco take 2 first-round offensive linemen a few years ago, fortify that offensive line, playing inside, just beat the crap out of those fronts in the NFC West. I like it.
Well, maybe not beat the crap out of them, but certainly a counter.
And yes, absolutely.
So it's a very smart thing to do if you're the Rams. Maybe take some notes.
Trade alert.
Trade alert.
We have Jacksonville trading up to grab a pick here.
Because Teddy Bridgewater and Johnny Manziel have fallen to the second half of the first round of the draft.
Yes.
And Bridgewater being snatched at 19 by the Jaguars, who could have had them at 3, but instead took Watkins.
I think we can agree he's not Andrew Luck in terms of like can't miss, gotta take him 1, or even RG3. But Bridgewater at 19, wow.
It's certainly a fantasy. It's something that's fun to think about as analysts.
When you think about the needs of teams, though, ahead of them, but still.
There's too many teams that need a quarterback and Bridgewater.
And on that note.
And then on that note, the Cardinals would go with Johnny Manziel, which,
20.
I mean, the Cardinals absolutely need a quarterback of the future. Carson Palmer and the word future just don't go together.
Not so much. Or future of shuffleboard or something like that. And then the Browns, once again, with Zach Martin. Interior offensive line, a need for the Browns, obviously. I really like their offensive line. Joe Thomas, obviously, a bedrock at left tackle.
As we've reviewed several different mock drafts with the Browns having 2 picks in the first round, Bortles and Martin is one of the best pairings we've seen.
Sounds like a comedy duo from the 1970s.
Bortles and Martin.
Yeah, no, that's a big win if they can walk away with those two.
Yeah.
All right, that is our evaluation of this week's Mocking the Draft first round. Let us know what you agree with. It's an intriguing one. Let us know where you just shake your head.
Yeah.
But now, let's talk outside linebackers.
Outside linebackers. Dan,
nice stacked group this year, I
yeah,
think.
tell me, who are your top 5 outside linebackers in this draft? I think number 1 is pretty obvious.
Yeah, number 1 and number 2 are pretty obvious to me. Obviously, Khalil Mack from Buffalo, just strong, polished, experience. He's a ready-made product to come in and just contribute and be like high level caliber immediately.
Great technique rushing the passer, but
Yes.
also can drop into coverage very comfortably.
Instincts are fantastic, very athletic. There really is no big shining weakness for him at the moment.
Consensus number 2, Anthony Barr of UCLA.
Yes, but Anthony Barr is a mean one. He is a mean one, Mr. Grinch. He closes really well. He injures. He destroys backfields. He's a pass rusher, and he's relentless. The big thing that stands out to me, and when you look at Stephen White's scouting report of Anthony Barr, his effort chasing down plays from the backside, chasing down plays down the field, he is just going to cause problems at all points. Love Anthony Barr.
Love having guys like that.
Yes.
And at number 3, a man who we've seen at the end of the first round in a couple of these drafts, Ryan Shazier of Ohio State.
Yeah, this is where the question has been, who's the number 3 outside linebacker? But he is ridiculous, has been for Ohio State for a long time. Terrific sideline to sideline, terrific snuffing the run, really good pass rusher, is aggressive, a very good tackler. A little smaller, can be a little over-aggressive, but certainly talent-wise, he's a first-round dude.
Last year, BYU had a fantastic defense, and one of the standouts was Kyle Van Noy. He's year before.
Anytime there were problems for whoever was playing BYU when they were on offense, generally it had to do with Kyle Van Noy. He causes a ton of turnovers. He gets in backfields. His strength isn't huge, but he's functionally strong, very good tackler. Van Noy is essentially, he just disrupts. That's his headline.
It's a disrupt.
I like that.
So a lot of 21st century CEOs love him.
Yes, absolutely.
Hashtag Strat.
Oh, please don't do that ever again. And fifth, I have Carl Bradford from ASU. Didn't have all the attention from that defense because of Big Will Sutton in the middle, but Carl Bradford, I think, was really the thing that made that ASU defense go. Very good tackling. He just brings people down constantly. And it sounds just like fundamentally simple. You like the name Carl Bradford?
Carl Bradford, he sounds like an 80s action hero.
Yeah.
Like
Carl Bradford
it's a good cop name.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's what you want. The size isn't fantastic, but his nose for the ball, his closing speed is everything you want, especially if you get him second, third round. It's a nice value.
All right. There you have the 5 best outside linebackers in the draft. Of course, some of them might project as defensive ends in a 4-3 versus outside linebackers 3-4.
Yeah, but these typically are your prototypical outside linebackers.
All right, there you go. Let us know what you think. Now, let's move on to the AFC East team needs. We'll start with the division winner, New England Patriots.
Thoughts? What do they need? What do they need to do in the draft?
What jumps out at me is with the injury history of Rob Gronkowski and their wide receiving core, which is made up of Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman's been re-signed, and they added not Kimbrel Tompkins, they've got him, but
game breakers.
Brandon LaFell. And with them loving 2 tight end sets and Gronkowski's injury history, I want to see a playmaker, a pass catcher, a big tight end, or an outside wide receiver.
Yeah, New England perennially searching for running backs, wide receivers, tight ends that can become sort of bedrocks of that offense.
Yeah, and I just think that there's not enough of a playmaker there after Rob Gronkowski, and I just don't know, are you going to get more than 10 or 12 games out of him any given season?
On Gronk, no.
Other than that, I think I'd like to really see them improve their interior offensive line. They re-signed Ryan Wendell despite him having a lousy 2013 at center.
Can't play the Colts every week, by the way. Interior offensive line.
And at right guard, Dan Connolly is not the guy that you want starting games for you. So, and other than that, they've got a hole at strong safety next to Devin McCourty. Question marks.
So if like a Zach Martin or if like a Xavier Su'a-Filo fall, that'd be a huge get for them.
Yes,
Okay,
definitely that. Moving on to the New York Jets.
Too much talent!
Yeah,
Where do they need help?
It's kind of a lot of places, but I would draw. What jumps out to me is offensive guard. They signed Willie Colon to a 1-year stopgap sort of deal. That's fine for a year, but you also need to upgrade the other spot of a Brian Winters, who, like Jets fans, love to hate.
Yes.
So really, either guard spot, they need a long-term solution.
If you can't evaluate running backs and receivers year in and year out, at least get an offensive line in there.
Speaking of receivers, this is the team that had the least talented wide receivers in the NFL, really for the last couple of years. Stephen Hill was maybe the worst starting wide receiver in the NFL last year.
If not for Jeremy Curley.
And they, of course, they've signed Eric Decker for too much money, but you can't ask Decker to do it all himself.
I like Decker, but no, he's not going to be able to do it all. He's going to get double teamed.
Yeah, so another wide receiver, a playmaker would be. You don't know if Geno Smith. Same thing with Mark Sanchez. Is like, how do you know if this guy's even a competent quarterback without giving him wide receivers?
I like that everybody argues about, oh, this guy's going too high, this guy's going too low. What should this team go after? But everybody's like, Jets, wide receiver. No, that's exactly what is needed.
And of course, Antonio Cromartie was a cap casualty. Dean Milliner didn't develop quite the way they wanted to last year.
He's got time though.
I'd look to the secondary too as kind of like a tertiary.
If they can get some value there, absolutely. The Miami Dolphins of Miami.
Well, let's see. What were they in the headlines for last year? They need to rebuild that offensive line, and they've started by signing Brandon Albert, left tackle. That's great. They've signed Jason Fox to be their presumptive right tackle, and at center you've got Mike Pouncey with some question marks.
Yes.
Like, will he suffer some fallout from?
What is his future consideration?
Yes. And that leaves two holes on either side of Pouncey, and maybe Pouncey and center itself. So the interior line, you want to see them draft at least a guard.
Clear quarterback of the future. A good stable of running backs. Fortify that offensive line.
Yeah, and after that, they want to look to cornerback. Brent Grimes has got one side of it nailed down. They lost their second and third cornerbacks from 2013. They signed Cortland Finnegan, but he's 30 years old. He spent much of last year injured. His drop-off in performance has been pretty remarkable. You want someone to at least compete with him, I think.
Here's the great news. Buffalo and the Jets are in the division. So cornerback, hey, 4th, 5th, 6th round, whatever you got.
The Bills, man. So
that's actually their slogan this year on shirts. Oh man, Bills. Jeez.
I got a page of text with Bills needs.
Oh gosh.
They've got some building blocks on defense that I like.
Their defense is actually very good.
Yes.
I like their defense.
At right tackle. So let's look to the offense.
Yeah.
At right tackle, they've got a huge hole. Was at left guard, but they've got a good signing with Chris Williams there. Weak link as right tackle.
Yeah.
Get a young tackle. You don't have to spend a first rounder on him even.
Right.
They need to fill that in the draft.
It is a nicely deep tackle draft. It's not the craziest one, but it's nice.
And of course, when we talk about their excellent young defense, they lost Jarris Byrd.
They did.
You need to fill.
You don't just replace Oregon Ducks.
You need to replace an all-pro safety with a quality starting safety. So that would be my biggest notes for the Bills. I think they could be.
Bills are closer than I think a lot of people think.
Could be a team on the rise. They still need to draft well.
Yes, that's big.
That is your AFC East team needs, and that is another edition of Future Consideration. Once again, Dan Rubenstein, your college football master.
Matt Ufford, your NFL guy.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.